Hi, this is Father Randy Rentner from Sacred Heart Parish, and this is another video on the connection between Sacred Heart Parish and the Congregation of Holy Cross. Today we're going to be talking about what it means to be a novice or a brother or a seminarian or a priest or a deacon, and hopefully by looking at the formation process, that is to say the studies and preparations, you'll understand a little more clearly what all those different titles and names mean. Holy Cross formation. I have a picture there of last year's novices, and everyone at Sacred Heart Parish knows about the novices. And this photo was taken for their first vows in the fall of 2019. So before we go into this, I want to review something from an earlier video, the difference between the ideas of ordination and religious life. So I've highlighted the bottom row because that's what we're talking about today in this video, religious life. And those who are in the first column, brothers or sisters and novices, are in religious life, but they're lay. That is to say, they're not ordained. In the other column, highlighted at the bottom row, are priests, clergy, and deacons in religious communities. So that's what we're talking about today. We're not going to be talking about secular folks at all. That is to say, the bulk of the church who are married and raise families, or ordained ministers in the clergy who are diocesan. That is to say, not in religious life. So today's video is about religious life, and specifically formation for young men in Holy Cross. So in the mid-20th century, this is what brothers, sisters, and priests would look like. So the brother, Holy Cross brother, on the left there would have a cassock, a habit with no cape on his shoulders, and the Holy Cross sister you can see in the traditional, what we call pie plate habit, with the very distinctive pleated headdress. And then the Holy Cross priest. Now, for the most part, in the mid-20th century, Holy Cross priests didn't wear their habits except for ceremonially. And here we just see him, this priest, in a Roman collar. Now, in warmer climates, black would be terribly oppressive, and so here, as the example from Bangladesh shows, Holy Cross religious wear white habits, and these are brothers. You can tell because they don't have the shoulder-length capes, and they're wearing flowers because in Bangladesh flowers are a very important part of their culture. Together, brothers and priests in Holy Cross, as religious, share common life, common prayer, and common works. And I've got it in blue here. This I've taken from their website, the Holy Cross congregation. The priests serve the church as religious and as ordained priest. These men with hope to bring, that's a quotation from our constitutions, serve in parishes, schools, and missions. And we've talked about the mission of Holy Cross being missionary work, parish work, and education. But the sacraments are another important part for the Holy Cross priests. For the Holy Cross brothers, sacraments are not a part of their ministry since they're not ordained, but they contribute boldly and broadly to the apostolic work of the congregation around the world, and they're an integral part of the communities, of the Holy Cross community and the Holy Cross family as educators in the faith. It's another quotation from our constitutions. So I showed you some pictures from the mid-20th century. Here are some young Holy Cross religious today. And you see on the left, the priests and would-be seminarians as well, wear the short capes, the shoulder-length capes. You can tell these are finally professed priests or maybe they might have been deacons at this time, because they have the pectoral cross, which means they've taken final vows. On the right, we have the Holy Cross novices from this year, 2019-2020, and you can see they wear sashes instead of cords when they're novices, and none of them wear shoulder-length capes. You see Brother James, the gentleman on the far right there, he wears a cord around his waist instead of a sash like the others because he's already taken final vows as a Holy Cross brother. So this is a chart I put together for the formation programs of the Holy Cross Priest and the Holy Cross Brothers, and you'll notice that the first three sections, the Old College program, the Postulant year, and the Novice year, are identical for people who want to become Holy Cross Priest or Holy Cross Brothers. It's only after the novitiate year that their formation programs differ, and we'll be going through each of these steps. Of course, you're always welcome to pause and at any frame and just read the details, but we'll be going through these as we move along the formation process. And we start with Old College. Now, Old College program is for those who join our congregation or seek to join our congregation while they're in college. So one can join the Old College program as a freshman or any time during the 4 years of college. The studies are at University of Notre Dame or Holy Cross College, which is right across the street. And moving on to Postulant year, if you've gone through the Old College program, your senior year will become your Postulant year, and we'll get to that later. But let's focus on Old College. So if you're an undergraduate, this is the building that you'll be living in, the larger white building. It's called Old College. The smaller log cabin is a replica from the first building that Father Soren found on the property when they arrived in 1841. And they built Old College, that building there. It's called Old College because it's the oldest building on the college, and it was the entire college for the first few years. It's had a lot of purposes over its long history, but for the last 40-some years, it's been the home for undergraduate men who are discerning a vocation to be a priest or brother in Holy Cross. And I have a website up top if you want to learn more about these places. So here are some pictures of Holy Cross of Old College today. And you see on the top left, you see a picture of the Old College building. It looks very much like it did from its earliest days. And over on the top right, you have an interior shot of the log chapel. Somehow it looks a lot bigger with that lens, that photo, but it's a very small log cabin. And it's a replica of the original one that Father Soren found. Down below, you have some of the boys sitting outside, and you have the kitchen. Again, it looks larger in the photo than it does in real life. So after you've been in Holy Cross as an old collegian, as we call them, for your senior year, you move over to Moreau Seminary, a larger building, and you spend your senior year as a postulant. Or if you join Holy Cross after having graduated from some other college program somewhere else, or just graduating from Notre Dame and entering the program after you've graduated, received your degree, and this is where most of our vocations come from, you'll become a postulant. Now, when I was a seminarian, we called that year candidate year, but they've gone back to the more traditional Latinate name, postulant. That year is a year of studies in philosophy and theology to get you caught up and preparing for further studies when you return from the novitiate, and most of those studies will be at Notre Dame. Again, this is for both brothers and people who desire to be priests. The postulant's year is not, you're not an official part of the religious community, but you're in the process of discernment. Mass and daily prayer, personal prayer, um, ministry placements. These are all part of what happens. When I was a seminarian, we'd always say that, it's a come and see year to explore, for the community to get to know us and for us to get to know the community. But the idea is you're preparing to join the congregation in the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. And here we are in the chapel at Moreau Seminary. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. So this is the daily life of a postulant at Moreau Seminary. Father Moreau, as you remember, is the founder of the congregation, and the seminary was built in the 1950s, is named after him. And you can see in that photo the large stained glass windows where the chapel is. But the postulants enter into a year of prayer and study and community life and ministry, and they take some classes in theology and philosophy, whatever they need to prepare themselves for their studies in the future. I've given you a typical daily schedule of Mass, a morning prayer and breakfast, taking classes. And again, you're always welcome to pause at any point and read these more clearly. So moving on, after a year at Moreau Seminary at the University of Notre Dame, the postulant, if he agrees and is invited to do so, petitions to become a novice. And the novice year, as you know, is spent at the novitiate in Cascade, Colorado. Now, I want to be very clear on these words because sometimes you hear people misuse them. A novice is a person. Novitiate is the place where novices live. So we have several novices at our novitiate in Cascade, Colorado. So the text here is taken directly from the Constitutions of the Congregation of Holy Cross. And the emphasis for the novice year is prayer, common life, and service through the mission of Holy Cross. That they're to open their hearts to the gospel and to live together in community as a brotherhood of disciples. And it's an apprenticeship in the vows of celibacy, or sometimes we say chastity, poverty, and obedience. And this is where they live, Mare Green Pines. The Cusack family out of Chicago they were into billboards. They made billboards and became quite wealthy and moved to Colorado and built a beautiful home here, finished in 1922. And in the 1970s, it was given over to the Congregation of Holy Cross. And one of our earliest novices was our own Father Ron Rabb. You'll recognize the sign if you drive up Highway 24. You'll see the sign that says Holy Cross Novitiate, Mare Green Pines. It's a quick turn off. And if you ever do pull off that exit, you will drive by and see this beautiful mansion. You've got an older picture down below, and then a more recent photo, and then a picture of the backyard. It's a beautiful Italian Renaissance sort of style home. And here are some interior shots of the novitiate. Beautiful marble fireplaces, coffered ceilings in the grand room. And you can see the obvious skill that the painters had from Mr. Cusack's background in painting billboards in Chicago. Some beautiful detail there over the bookcase. It's a beautiful building, and if you get a chance to take one of the tours every 3 years, you really should take advantage of it. Here's a view from the chapel at the front entrance of the novitiate building, and you see the beautiful hills and rock formations across the highway. The original building that the Cusacks built before the main building was finished is called now the Cottage, and it's right along the highway. As you turn that corner on Highway 24, you'll see the stone wall and the buildings right behind that stone wall. There's 50 acres of land, and these two major buildings, the cottage and the main building, and they also have a barn and a huge sort of garage workshop gym area, and a little, what they call the hermitage, a small little A-frame cottage up above the property where one of the novices can spend some time or a day or two in prayer and solitude. And here's their daily schedule, and I'll let you pause if you want to read through it, but there's a lot more prayer, it's a lot more scheduled monastic type lifestyle. And when their novitiate year comes to an end, the novices take first vows, the vows of poverty, celibacy, and obedience. They are temporary vows. They only last a year unless you renew them. And you see in the photo the novices that had sashes and no capes now have cords and capes, except for the two brothers. The capes are only for the seminarians and the ones who are moving towards priesthood. So you see the tall brother Matthew in the back with no cape, and also brother Jacob in the very center. He doesn't have a cape, although it's hard to see. So after they take first vows, the religious are either temporary vowed brothers or they're temporarily vowed seminarians. And the seminarians are going on to graduate studies for their preparation for priesthood, and that is at the University of Notre Dame, so they're basically moving back to Moreau Seminary. And the brothers may take the same studies if they're interested in theology and interested in doing that kind of ministry, or if they want to study something different or move in a different area, their studies are tailored to their own needs. And it's about 4 years for both, but they absolutely need 3 years in temporary vows before they can take final vows. So temporary vows, they're temporarily professed religious. So, and they get renewed year after year until they decide to take final vows or leave. Those headed to ordination become seminarians, and the brothers are not called seminarians because they're not studying in the seminary, but they are still temporarily professed religious, preparing for their final vows. So, as I said, the brothers' ministries dictate what preparation they need before they take final vows. And here we have Brother Joe D'Agostino, and a little blurb I stole from the internet. He took vows in August of 2019, final vows. And we'll go on to the next slide. Here's Moreau Seminary. And after they get back from their novitiate year, they return to this Moreau Seminary, and here's that chapel again with the beautiful stained glass windows, and the light is different every day. Here's that same photo from earlier, and you can see the angels that are in the stained glass windows. Father Tony Lauk is a wonderful man, and he was the artist who created these. So here's some more shots of Moreau Seminary. They have an auditorium, they have a gymnasium, they have a large rec room, and they're playing piano. And then we have the dining room or refectory, very large, well-lit room. The library down below, it's just below the chapel. And they have a barber shop and lots of hallways. It's a big place. And some outside shots. It's a very beautiful place. The opposite views of St. Joe's Lakes. So on one side, looking towards the seminary, above and down below, I'm standing on the seminary property, and we're looking at the University of Notre Dame in the distance. So moving on to final vows. After their studies, whatever they might be, a brother will take final vows. And here's that same Brother Joe D'Agostino in the photo above, taking final vows. And it's at the Basilica of Sacred Heart at the University of Notre Dame. And in the center there, the person he's taking his vows to is the provincial superior. He's the leader of our province in the Congregation of Holy Cross. And on either side are our assistants with the service. So the brothers and seminarians take identical final vows. But as you see down below, the ones who are studying to be priests, the seminarians, will have the short cape, and at their final vows, they have the pectoral cross. So for the seminarians who have taken final vows, for us in our congregation, the next day, they are also ordained to the diaconate. They become deacons in the church. And then they'll be assigned to work at a parish for a year. So here the picture above shows this particular class. There doesn't seem to be any brothers in formation, but the 5 seminarians are all taking their final vows. And then the photo below is from a different class. There's 2 seminarians who have taken final vows on the Saturday are now on the Sunday being ordained by a bishop to the diaconate. That takes place at Moreau Seminary, as you can tell. And now to our final step. We have priesthood ordination for those who took final vows and were ordained deacon. And now, after a year of diaconate work in a parish, they return to the University of Notre Dame and are ordained a priest. So back to the Basilica of the Sacred Heart at the campus of Notre Dame. And here we have 2 fellows who have just been ordained by a bishop in the photo. Final vows and diaconate ordinations are typically in the fall. And then in the spring, on the Saturday right after Easter, is when we typically have our priestly ordinations. So that's the story of formation in Holy Cross. This is the path that one takes to become either a finally professed brother in the Congregation of Holy Cross or an ordained priest as a member of the Congregation of Holy Cross. I hope that was helpful.